afternoon's rally. First, we'd like to thank Senator Donna Campbell of District 25 for supporting this rally and for helping to support the Falun Gong community through proclamations and legislative efforts throughout the years. On behalf of the Falun Dafa Association, we wish to thank everyone for attending this rally, which commemorates the 26th anniversary of the April 25th appeal in China that calls for the end to the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa. For the rally today, we have key speakers as well as testimonials on the persecution of Falun Dafa practitioners in China. We wish everyone to be informed of the atrocities of the Chinese Communist Party is doing to Falun Gong practitioners and to know the truth of the propaganda and misinformation that has spread to cause hate and negativity. To start our event, we would like to welcome to the podium the president of the Southern USA Falun Dafa Association, Mr. Sean Young.
Good afternoon, everyone. 26 years ago, on April 25th, all of us believed that the government in Beijing would have treated a citizen petition fairly, as every other government will normally do. Thousands of Falun Gong practitioners went to Beijing to exercise their civil right. The petition seems to be going well and ended peacefully. Falun Gong practitioners went home with a hope that the CCP government will release the practitioners who were beaten and detained by police simply because of doing peaceful exercises in public. Yet, no one expected that a relentless, horrifying, 26-year-long persecution was awaiting. Since July 20th, 1999, tens of thousands Falun Gong practitioners were persecuted to death in CCP's detention center or labor camps. Many elderly practitioners in their 80s even could not be exonerated from going to prison. More disturbingly, more and more evidence surfaced in recent years that Falun Gong practitioners in China became the primary source of state-run organ harvesting crime. Over 2 decades, this unprecedented crime on this planet by killing people for their organs has become a money-making machine for many hospitals in China. Many doctors in China today practice these evil acts instead of saving people's lives. Falun Gong practitioners are among the best people in China or in other countries in the world because they follow the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. They are the most peaceful group if you ever know anyone practicing Falun Gong. Under CCP's brutal persecution for the past 26 years, many Falun Gong practitioners lost their lives, but they never gave up their belief of being nonviolent and never bent down to the evil CCP regime by renouncing the basic moral values of a human being. The values Falun Gong practitioners uphold are universal and not much different from teachings in many religions or traditional belief. In everyday life, Falun Gong practitioners say with kindness, truth, and honesty, we love our family and other people in society and love to help people in difficulty whenever we are capable. Always stay positive and uplifting in dealing with hardship or challenges in life. What Falun Gong practitioners pursue is growth in spirituality instead of fame or personal gain in this secular world. Such a group of modest, nice, and peaceful people has been persecuted for 26 years in China. And today, CCP is still flexing its muscle trying to eliminate Falun Gong from the earth. What does this mean? This means that the Chinese Communist regime has declared its own illegitimacy to rule China after 76 years. At least 100 million of Chinese people were killed in the movement under its ruling. It is time for this illegal entity to return basic human rights back to Chinese people. It's time for this evil regime to return China to Chinese people. On behalf of Falun Gong practitioner from Texas, thank you for standing with us in this rally today, and your support is critical to end this persecution. Thank you.
Okay, so we'd like to, welcome Senator Paxton. Senator Paxton has helped us with a couple different bills, and she's going to give us a little bit of a speech.
Thank you. I'm Senator Angela Paxton. I live in McKinney, Texas. I represent Collin County, Hunt County, and Rains County here in the Texas legislature, in the Texas Senate. And it's an honor to be with you here today, recognizing and commemorating the anniversary of the peaceful protest of April 25th, 1999. As I begin, the first thing I would like to just acknowledge is thank you for your courage. Thank you for your courage in being here in person today. I know that it is not nothing for you to be here. You have friends, you have family members, you have your own life, and you're here in solidarity, in courage to recognize this day. I first learned about Falun Gong from a constituent up in North Texas in Collin County. And she introduced me to the practice of Falun Gong and what it stands for: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. She introduced me to a number of individuals who practice Falun Gong. I remember a meeting in my conference room at my office in which these members, many of whom spoke English, but some who did not, and they brought translators so that I could understand. But they shared with me the stories of their friends and family members still in China who had been imprisoned and tortured, and some of whom had been subjected to the despicable practice of forced organ harvesting. Unthinkable to me, and yet it was true. 2 sessions ago, as a result of those conversations in the Texas legislature, in the House and the Senate, we passed Senate Concurrent Resolution 3 to decry the practice of forced organ harvesting and transplant tourism, to shine a light on the evil of this practice, and make sure that individuals here did not unknowingly participate. Last session, I co-authored Senate Bill 1040 with Senator Lois Kolkhorst, which became the first anti-forced organ harvesting law in the United States. And I was so proud to do that. Many of you came and you testified for those bills. Again, not just admirable, but courageous. Now I'd like to move to the present. This past December, I had the opportunity to attend a performance of Shenyun, China Before Communism, in Dallas. It was inspiring, it was entertaining, it was educational, and it was also deeply moving. I am grieved to hear of the reported efforts of the Chinese Communist Party reaching beyond its own geographic boundaries in attempts to malign and discredit Falun Gong and the presentation of Shenyun, which highlights the peaceful practitioners of Falun Gong. The United States and Texas will continue to stand as a safe haven in the face of such atrocities as forced organ harvesting and religious persecution. And I, today, continue to be honored to stand with you. Thank you again for being here. May God bless you. May God bless Texas. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Senator Paxton for coming and visiting us. So our next speaker is going to be Fu Min from Houston.
Thank you, MC. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Fu. I am the medical advisor of China Organ Harvest Research Center. Thank you for inviting me to speak here at today's Valley, the anniversary April 25 incident. It was well known that 26 years ago, on April 25th, 1999, tens of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners in China went to State Bureau of Letters and calls for petition for the Tianjin incident, which caused the international renaissance and was praised by many medias as the largest peaceful petition activity in China since the students' uprising in 1989 in Tiananmen Square. Although the April 25th petition was very peaceful, its goal was to call for the freedom of practicing Falun Gong. But unfortunately, the persecution to Falun Gong from the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, still started in July 1999. The persecution of Falun Gong practitioners are brutal. Millions of Falun Gong practitioners were put into jails and detention center, legal campus, and brainwash centers. Many practitioners lost their lives and due to severe torture and their organs because of the faith. Today, I was talking about the first organ harvesting happening in China. It has been spread out over the world since 1999. As time went by, more and more evidence became available to the public for the first organ harvest from the live Falun Gong practitioners. More and more evidence became available recent years. So first organ harvesting has been existing for decades in China, but it became explosive growth since 1999 because of the persecution to Falun Gong practitioners. For example, in 1996 to 1997, when I was an anesthesiologist at China's Huaxi Hospital, during the transplant surgeries, I encountered the kidneys from the death row prisoners. From the communication with the surgeons who went for the procure for the kidney, it was obviously that death row prisoners lost their organs without any consenting procedures. In 2006, allegations first came to light that Falun Gong practitioners in jails and hospitals throughout China were killed on demand for the organs. My colleagues and I then joined the China Organ Harvest Research Center. After decades of research, we eventually concluded that the CCP has committed forced organ harvesting from prisoners unconscious and others for decades. And the Falun Gong practitioners have been the major victims since 1999. The other victims are house Christians, minority groups such as Uyghurs, Tibetans, prisoners of conscience, death row prisoners, and others unknown with unknown reason. Our research center has published comprehensive report annually since 1916. The data shows that the actual number of transplants performed in China is likely at least 70,000 to 100,000 each year. This is far exceeding the China's official figures of 10,000 to 15,000 per year. As compared to the rest of the world, which waiting time for organs yearly takes for years, the waiting time in mainland China hospitals are days, or weeks. In recent decades, there have been a rise in transplant tourism. Many patients who were promised fresh organs in days or weeks have traveled to China for transplants, including uninformed patients from here in Texas. These facts will believed get involved with the forced organ harvesting happening in China. As someone who works in the medical field, I hope everyone who heard this news can pass it to everyone you know to prevent the residents from becoming complicit in forced organ harvesting in China. Falun Gong is an ancient spiritual practice of Buddhist tradition. It combined meditation and gentle exercise, following the discipline of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. But unfortunately, the CCP began to persecute Falun Gong since 1999. 20 years of persecution is too long. Today is the anniversary of April 25th incident. We are here for those people who have been persecuted for decades but cannot speak the truth themselves. And today is also for the brave people like you and me to stand out to raise more people's awareness. For the peoples in China who lost their freedom, even lives due to their faith. Your action will help to save lots of innocent people's life in China. It's a time for all of us to stand out to say no to CCP's evil deed and put an end to the brutal persecution to everyone in China, including Falun Gong practitioners, for their faith and freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next speaker is Yen Nguyen from Houston.
Good afternoon. My name is Yen Nguyen. I'm a practitioner from Vietnam. I've been practicing Falun Gong for nearly 10 years now. Before I practiced in Falun Gong, I had many chronic health problems. But after I follow its principles of truth, compassion, forbearance, all my illness gone away. And my health improved so much that my family decided to try it too. And my mom is in her 80s. She had backbone problem for nearly 30 years. But after taking up the practice, she totally recovered. But despite of all the benefits that Falun Gong brought to my family and millions of other people around the world, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, has been persecuted Falun Gong for 26 years and even beyond its border. Let me share this story. Just 2 weeks ago, on April 13, the 2 days before Chinese President Xi Jinping was scheduled to visit Malaysia. Under the pressure of the CCP, the local police raided a peaceful reading group, and they called it illegal gathering and detained 76 practitioners for questioning. This makes me remember what happened to me and my friends back in Vietnam in 2017, when APEC summit were held in my hometown and President Xi attended. At that time, we were under heavy surveillance. One evening during the summit, 20 of us were reading Falun Gong book peacefully when suddenly 20 armed police officers show up and they collect our IDs and they confiscated all the book and flyer. And the following night, they raided all the practitioner homes and did the same. And after that, 2 to 4 police officers stationed outside our home. And some younger practitioners were detained at home for months by their parents, and some has lost their job. In 2018, a group of practitioners returned from a conference in Taiwan and carrying Falun Gong book with them. As soon as they landed in Vietnam, the police were waiting. They seized all the books. Until now, Falun Gong publication still not allowed in Vietnam. Undercover police officer, sometimes called Falun Gong expert, they disrupt our practice. They organize loud events nearby while we do meditation, or play soccer games nearby and intentionally kick the balls into us. Some of my friends have even bitten for just peacefully sharing the information with Chinese tourists. The harassment and confiscations of the books still happen nowadays. The CCP has used the tactics for years in China, and now they export them to the countries they have influence. I am fortunately to have resettled in the United States, where I can freely practice my faith. But even here, the CCP has not stopped its campaign against Falun Gong. I'd like to bring your attention to the recent escalation of transnational repression targeting Falun Gong and Shen Yun's performing art. For those who may not know, Shen Yun's is the world's premier classical Chinese dance and music company. It was founded in New York in 2006 by top artists who practice Falun Gong. Since then, Shen Yun has grown into 8 touring companies, performs in over 200 cities around the world every year. By January 2025, Shen Yun was honored by Texas House of Representatives, passed a resolution declaring that January 29th as Shen Yun Day. However, the CCP has never stopped trying to interfere with Shen Yun. They pressured the theater to cancel the shows, harassed performers' families in China, flooded the net with the smear campaigns, and sent fake bomb threats, and even slashed the tires of the tour buses. So why is CCP so scared of Shen Yun? It's because Shen Yun bring back 5,000 years of Chinese civilization back to life. During the Cultural Revolutions from 1966 to 1976, the CCP destroyed temples, burned traditional books and artwork, and cut off an entire nation from its heritage. Shen Yun is bringing that history back. It tells stories from ancient China. It also shows what's happening in China nowadays, including the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners, the courage of their faith, and their peaceful resistance. This is human rights violation that CCP has been trying to hide. Yet, Shen Yun is putting it on the stage for the entire world to see through powerful and moving art. When CCP failed to stop Shen Yun by force, they turned to manipulate public opinion. They placed paid contents attacking Shen Yun in major newspapers in the United States that appear to average readers as regular articles written by the paper. And a series of articles attacking Shen Yun mysteriously appears all at once in Western press, and often by the authors, which directly linked to China. They have an anti-online 50-cent armies attacking Shen Yun whenever they can, sometimes with hundreds of identical comments in one video within a day. But I encourage you to watch the Shen Yun, the performance yourself, and see what Shen Yun really is and the value it stands behind. Over the past years, things have escalated. The attacks have become more frequent, more aggressive, and more disturbing, especially here in the United States. This is not random. Since June last year, internal CCP documents have been leaked, outlining a coordinated campaign of disinformation and lawfare targeting Shen Yun and Falun Gong. Here are just few examples. On February 3rd, 2025, a fake bomb threat was sent to a theater in France right before Shen Yun's show. The entire venue had to be evacuated, delaying the performance for over an hour. Performers and audiences were left waiting outside in the cold. And that same month, on February 20th, other bomb threats were sent to Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. The complex was shut down for hours right before Shenyun was about to begin. No violence has occurred, but the tactics appears aimed to intimidating performers and scaring away potential audiences. Another serious case. In November 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, sentenced a Chinese agent who tried to price an IRS official, hoping to strip Shenyun from its non-profit status. To date, over 130 cases have been documented. I hope the U.S. government will launch a comprehensive investigation, counterintelligence, to identify and hold accountable those behind these threats and attacks. And I hope that Texas legislators will include these transnational repression campaigns targeting Falun Gong and Shenyun in future hearings, reports, and legislation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Yen. Next, we're going to have a reading for Yang Jin from Dallas, which will be read by Sylvia. And this is a testimonial from the persecution. You just have to read directly into it. Straight? Yeah, straight in and there you go.
Hello everyone. My name is Jin Yang. I'm from Qingdao, China, and I currently live in Dallas. I have been practicing Falun Gong with my mother since I was a child. My mother began practicing in 1997. She followed the Dafa principle of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, starting with being a good person and applying strict self-discipline. Through studying Dafa and practicing the exercises, her long-standing illness was gradually cured. She deeply felt the beauty and wonder of Dafa and told people around us about it. During the period before the persecution, more and more people began to practice Falun Dafa and benefited from it. On July 20th, 1999, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, out of jealousy that the number of Falun Gong practitioners exceeded the number of its party members, launched a brutal and inhumane persecution of Falun Gong practitioners. My mother went to Beijing to clarify the truth. She wanted to share a personal experience of practicing Falun Gong and petition the government to stop the persecution. But she was intercepted by the police on the train. After she returned home, the police and the neighborhood committee monitored, harassed, and stalked my family 24/7, demanded her to write a letter of guarantee to give up her practice. They also took away Dafa books and Dafa master's picture. They demanded my father to keep the front door open and lights on at home, day or night, so that they could barge in and check on us at any time. My father could not withstand the repeated intimidation, humiliation, threats, and unlawful home raids. He passed away in September 1999 while I was only 15 years old. However, this was just the beginning of the persecution. In the following years, my mother was illegally detained many times because she continued to go to Beijing to clarify the truth of Falun Dafa. During detentions, she was forced to do labor work for more than 12 hours a day and was locked up with murderers, drug addicts, and prostitutes. She was given vegetable soup mixed with sand and insects and steamed buns with rat fishes found in them for food. In addition, my mother was also abducted to brainwashing classes many times, of which the longest one lasted for 3 months. She was forced to watch videos that slandered Dafa and the Dafa master. The guards followed her everywhere, including while she was using bathroom. Because my mother insisted on continuing to practice, she was fired from her job and lost her only source of income. During the time when my mother was kidnapped, I was also discriminated against by my relatives while police stalked and harassed me. During the Chinese New Year, when other families reunited, I had to make through it with loneliness, fear, and hunger. In order to live as normally as possible, I moved to my grandmother's house. Some relatives then occupied our house and threatened that if we dared to come back, they would report us to the police and have us arrested. The police followed me from school to my grandmother's house to harass her, causing her to be hospitalized due to a relapse of high blood pressure and heart attack. At one time, while school was in session, police broke into my classroom and took me away right in front of my classmates. One day in 2005, my mother and I were stopped by police on our way to a fellow practitioner's home to deliver some truth clarification materials, and we were detained. My mother was illegally held for months with no visitors allowed. The police threatened me by stating that if I continued to practice, I would be suspended from school and would not be able to find a job in the future. At the same time, our home was illegally raided once again. A few years later, when I tried to apply for my passport to leave China, I found that I was illegally blacklisted and was prohibited from leaving the country. I was fortunate enough later in 2014 to eventually come to the United States, the land of free, when passport application was switched from manual review to computerized process. A year and a half after I came to the United States, my mother was again illegally detained and tortured in China for her effort to clarify the Dafa truth. The CCP authorities illegally arrested my mother and secretly sentenced her to 3.5 years in prison in violation of legal procedures, without prior notification to her family or lawyers, and with insufficient evidence. My mother was sent to the notorious Area 11 of the Jinan Women's Prison in Shandong Province. During her imprisonment, the guards put restrictions on my mother's every movement, including drinking water, going to the toilet, washing, walking, talking, and raising her head. She was also forced to watch videos that slander Dafa and Dafa Master. And when she refused, she was pulled by hair, cursed, humiliated, pushed around, kicked, and forced to stand for extended period as punishment. In addition, she was not allowed to sit down when eating, was only allowed to sleep for a very short time every day, and was forced to sit on a small stool for a prolonged period without any movement. Because my mother refused to give up her practice and tried to do Falun Gong exercises in prison, she was severely beaten and then was forcefully put into a standing position as punishment. As a result, her lumbar vertebrae were dislocated, her legs and feet were swelling, she was bedridden and unable to move for 5 months, and she was unable to walk upright for 9 months. After my mother was released from prison, the police continued to stalk and harass her. They eavesdropped on her phone conversations, and she was forced to make so-called monthly situation reports until she left China in 2021. Although my mother and I have now escaped from the CCP, this unprecedented persecution has lasted for 26 years in China and is still ongoing. Today, I stand here to thank the US government for sheltering us. At the same time, I call on the CCP to immediately stop persecuting Falun Gong practitioners. Thank you.
Going to be Rebecca Chin from Houston.
In memory of April 25th. Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Chen. I came to the United States of America from China in 2015. Every year around this time, I participate in the April 25th Memorial Rally. Today, standing on this land of freedom, I'm grateful to share my experience in China to speak out for those Falun Gong practitioners who were persecuted to death by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. I thank the United States of America and all the people and organizations that have helped us. I began my practicing journey of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, in 1998. The book Zhuan Falun resolved my life's confusions and elevated my morals. Its peaceful exercises boost my immunity and health, and its principles deeply attract me, changing my values and uplifting my spirit. Just a year into my practice, the evil CCP, led by Jiang Zemin, launched a brutal persecution against Falun Gong on July 20, 1999. Despite my short time in practice, I had greatly benefited and knew that following the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance were not wrong. The evil CCP labeled Falun Gong as illegal, banning its practice and demanding the surrender of all related books. Despite the earlier peaceful appeal by 10,000 practitioners on April 25th in Beijing, the government secretly collected practitioners' personal information under the guise of understanding, only to misuse it for the subsequent crackdown. 3 members of my family practiced Falun Gong: my mother, my brother, and I. Our lives had changed greatly. Believing in the goodness of the practice, we decided to appeal to the government. During our first attempt to petition in Beijing, my brother and I were arrested and detained. I was held for 45 days and my brother for 18 months. On October 17, 1999, my mother and I tried to appeal again, but the petition office had largely become a location for arrest. In Tiananmen Square, we saw practitioners being beaten and arrested for holding banners or proclaiming Falun Gong is good. When my mom and I raised a banner, we were beaten and taken away. On the way to detention center, I witnessed a young policeman pour white paint over a male practitioner's head and then beat him. I proclaimed to the policeman to stop, reminding him that we were good people and he was committing a crime. Although he stopped, another officer covered my mouth and pushed me down. On the way to the detention center, I continuously told the truth about Falun Gong to the personnel in the vehicle. Later, we were taken to a local police station in Beijing and then returned to our hometown. My mom was detained for a month and I was sentenced to 3 years in a labor camp. In the Henan province women's labor camp, I was forced to work 15 hours a day, making export products such as rugs, tablecloths, and hair wigs, etc. When some practitioners protested, they were cuffed and brutally beaten by armed police. The day before, I had seen 3 practitioners who were smiling, but the next day, the labor camp announced that they had each committed suicide. One of them was a...
Also, at that time, January 1st, the year 2000, the new millennium, I was suffering a lot. I had horrible leg problems. I'm a mountain climber. I used to play lacrosse. And as a result of that, my knees and my feet were in horrible condition. I could never play soccer again or anything. My sister's a doctor. I said, I went to my sister and I said, find me the best doctor money can buy. I don't care. I'm tired of living with these knees. She sent me to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. I met this very high-powered orthopedic surgeon. And after his examination of me, this is what he said that was so encouraging. He said, Keith, I can operate on your legs, but it will be a year before you get back to where you are today. And then you have to keep the therapy up and hope that it improves. And here's the most encouraging part. He said, it may not last. I can't guarantee it'll be a permanent fix. And so I was really encouraged by that. Well, my wife and I started practicing Falun Gong January 1st, year 2000. And within about, I'll say 3 months, give or take 3 months, I had 2 new legs. I could play soccer, no problem. My knees, before, they were so hyperextended, I could bend them this far backwards. That was gone. I had frostbite from my mountain climbing accident. I was buried in a glacier for 3 days and my feet froze. And I almost had to have my feet amputated. Well, I didn't, but the nerves grew back and the tissue didn't, so my feet were very, very painful from that point on. And so I couldn't walk around without something on my feet, because if it was too hot, my feet would hurt. If it was too cold, my feet would hurt. If there was any vibrations out there, my feet would hurt. And then one day, and you would never catch me walking around the house without any shoes on, because it would hurt. One day, after practicing for 3 or more months, give or take, as I said, I woke up and I'm walking around the house, and I looked down at my feet. I said, hey, Donna, I got no shoes on. And she said, well, put some shoes on, stupid. Oh. I said, no, you don't get it. I'm not wearing any shoes, and my feet aren't hurting. And I can stand up for any length of time, and I don't have to worry about it. Well, without the permission of my wife, around that same period, you have to understand, my wife also suffered from an incurable disease in her hands, Raynaud's syndrome, poor circulation. And she could probably tell you to the day when she never suffered from that incurable disease anymore. I mean, as a result of practicing Falun Gong. One day, we were out on the National Mall in front of our Capitol in DC, practicing, and it was cold. Probably 5 degrees, wind chill, maybe -5. We were renovating our house, and then after she took her gloves off and gave it to a new person learning the exercises. She gave her gloves to that person. So she did all the exercises that we do without gloves. Great. Well, we got in the car, drove off. We were going to Home Depot to renovate our house, get products to renovate our house. And do you know, on the way to Home Depot, she said, "Stop. We got to go back." She was nauseous. She was ready to throw up. And her hands were in such pain. But so I turned around. We started going home. We didn't make it home because she said, "I'm okay. Let's go." And that was probably the last day she suffered from her Raynaud's disease. Maybe she may have had something else. But there are many reasons why I love Falun Gong. These are just a few things. But let me tell you, I loved it and appreciated the fact that it helped my legs, that I understood that the people of China, the people of China were being persecuted because they were being told by their government that we were something evil, we were bad. They were persecuting us, and they started a campaign against us. The people didn't like it. Let me tell you a quick story. My wife and I went to China to tell the people of China that Falun Gong is good. Now, we've been using the word persecution. I don't really know what that word means. I know what murder means. I know what torture means. I know what rape means. I know what orphaning children means. Slavery. Exactly. Thank you. But my point is, the people of China and practitioners in China. So we went there to let the people know that that Falun Gong is good and it's practiced everywhere in the world. And well, guess what? One quick story. Everybody knows the singer David Bowie. David Bowie. Well, David Bowie, he had a drummer. His drummer was named Sterling Campbell. Is named Sterling Campbell. He went with us to China at that time. And of course, because he is a Falun Gong practitioner and no other crime, he was arrested. And they took him to his room to search it and ransack his hotel room, etc. But here's what's crazy. On the way back to the police station, he was sitting in the car, and a policeman sat beside him. And the policeman pulled out his phone and typed out a message, because he knew he was a Falun Gong practitioner. And he typed out the message, "I know you are a good person." Then he erased that message. And then he came back and typed another message. He said, secretly, "My mother practices Falun Gong." So, which was crazy. It means that he knows Falun Gong is good. He is being tied up by his own government, his own boss. He feels that he has to do his job to arrest people and torture and kill people because their boss says so. I had a similar experience when I was in China. I was able to talk to the policemen that arrested and beat me, etc., etc. Well, I told them that that they were envious. They said, "You're lucky. You don't have to worry about where you practice or if you practice. You're good in America. We don't have that benefit here." And I said, "But there's one thing. You can get your own life back. I can't guarantee it'll be nice and smooth, but it'll be your own life." And he agreed with me and vowed to be true to his own heart from that point on. Well, he said that right before he literally kicked me onto the plane to get out of the country. And this is, I'm very sensitive about the torture, killing, and rape. Like I said, I don't need the word persecution. Torture, killing, rape. And this is the worst case, and this is my last part of the story. We talked about organ harvesting, supported by the state. And that is about the craziest thing anybody out here in Texas should know or understand what organ harvesting is. They started organ harvesting Falun Gong practitioners. You know, in Canada, they started an investigation by David Kilroy and David Mattis. And in that investigation that we have on tape, they contacted 18 hospitals, pretending like they needed a heart transplant, a kidney transplant, or whatever. And while talking to those 18 hospitals, 17 out of those 18 hospitals answered when asked, "Where do you get your organs from?" 17 out of 18 hospitals said over the phone on our recording, they said, "Oh, we get our organs, our hearts, lungs, liver, spleens, whatever, from Falun Gong practitioners." And why did they say, what was the reason? Well, Falun Gong practitioners are good. They believe in truth, compassion, and tolerance. They don't smoke, they don't drink. You've got the best heart possible, which is horrible, because the woman from Singapore, she needed 2 kidneys. She needed 2 kidneys. I don't know why, you can live with 1, but she needed 2 kidneys. So she called up the hospital in China and said, "I need 2 kidneys." She said, "Oh," they said, "Come on down, come get your kidneys." And they came and gave her 2 kidneys, which meant that a Falun Gong practitioner had to be murdered, not persecuted, murdered to get those 2 kidneys. Okay, she went back to Singapore. Those 2 kidneys were incompatible with her. She calls up the hospital again, or the doctor, and says, "These kidneys aren't taking." Said, come on down. We'll give you another set." So she got a second set of kidneys, which means another Falun Gong practitioner was murdered, not persecuted. She went back to Singapore. And after the 3rd, 4th, and 5th set of kidneys she got, I think it was possibly 6, but I hope it took, because that means the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Falun Gong practitioner was murdered for her kidneys. And this murder, torture, rape has to stop. And that's why we're here. And I am glad, and I want to once again applaud Senator Paxton for coming down and speaking on our behalf. That's why we're here, and I thank everybody for coming up and making a long drive to here. Thank you very much.
对，今天我们在这里集会哈，有很多美国民众都会停下来看，然后就会也很好奇啊，就说到底发生什么事情了。那我们呢就给他们介绍了这个法轮功在中国受迫害的情况，然后很多民众都感到非常惊讶。有些人他虽然知道法轮功是一个很好的健身功法，但是他们对这么好的功法在中国受迫害其实是不知道的。但他们一旦了解，他们就会非常吃惊，而且也感到非常的气愤，因为这是非常不人道的事情。所以呢，当我们告诉他们说这有一个叫法轮功保护法案被介绍在美国是在2025年，然后他们就很支持。这里就不少民众 就开始主动要求签名，要求支持这个法案。他们有从不同的地方来的，甚至有从外州来的，有达拉斯的，也有本地的，所以这个活动确实是搞得非常成功。
我想问你们签这个法轮功的保护法案，签这个名是为了去有什么用吗？
对，我也有民众有这样问过，他们说啊，你在这里是迫害在中国，你们在这里签有什么用处？我也跟他们解释，我说我们呢是一个非常和平的群体，我们也不用枪，我们也不去，我们甚至不喊口号。但是我们呢，就是希望大家都能够知道这件事情，然后所有人呢都新奇，都希望能够停止迫害。那么这个法案呢，就是第一，我们就要求中国政府能够停止迫害。第二呢，我也告诉他们，你喜欢旅游，你愿意去中国吗？中国那么美丽的国家，你肯定会想去。但是你会不会担心呢？因为你一旦进了这个国家，可能你就忽然被消失了然后你的器官就不知道到哪去了，你的家人就找不到你了。你愿意去这样一个国家吗？你肯定不愿意。那么中国呢？中国人本身是没有这个捐献器官的传统的，为什么这么多人都到中国去移植器官呢？所以我们要求中国政府要提供这个器官移植的报告，你们到底是怎么样？你们不能黑箱操作，你们不能就是把一个无辜人的器官偷过来。所以很多民众都非常支持，他们也觉得是中国这么美好，就一定不能让这样黑暗、这样可怕的事情再发生下去。对，是的，因为其实美国政府对法轮功受迫害，26年已经是知道的非常清楚的，但实际上也没有一个明确的法案去保护这个群体，因为这个群体本身是一个和平的群体，他们没有任何武装力量，甚至也没有任何政府发声为他们说话。但是这一个法案呢，是一次比较正式的，有一个真正的一个强大的国家站出来为这个群体发声。是有不少人，可能有些人他现在还不是很确定，但他会主动说，我要拍下照片或者拿一个传单，然后回去再看具体的信息。因为目前网上有很多这样的信息，甚至有电影、有纪录片都记载了中共这个活摘法轮功学员器官的这个惨无人道的事情，所以我相信也有很多民众会回去来发表他们支持的声音。
They're very supportive, and most of the people are not from local like Texas or Austin, but they're from other places. But they're very supportive. They understand the evil of the Chinese Communist Party, and also they understand the persecution in China. Most of them have already heard of this before, and especially a whole family, like they're from Cuba. They fully understand the evil of the communists, and then when they go, they also like tell us good luck, and also they do believe there shouldn't be any communist party on the planet, like in the world, on this land. They fully understand us, and then they support us because they've been through the evilness of communist party. Most people do support us, like do give the signature, help to end the persecution, but not every people know what is Falun Gong, but they know it's something come from China, it's a good practice, and then they're peaceful. They know those information. Most people do not know the persecution, like how bad it is or how evil the Communist Party treat them. I think it's getting better, especially about the evilness about the Chinese Communist Party. They know much more about it. When they heard like the persecution is under the Chinese Communist Party, they're willing to support us.